Welcome to Speed Data, quick conversations with cybersecurity leaders. I'm your host, Megan Garza. This week's episode is a continuation of my chat with Jonathan Rao, VP and Distinguished Engineer at Query. During our conversation, Jonathan talked about threat modeling, the impacts of AI on organizations, and which podcasts he makes sure to never miss. If you missed part one of my conversation with Jonathan, check out the full post at varonis.com/blog. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy part two of Speed Data featuring Jonathan Rao. Welcome to the show, Jonathan.
Hey, Megan. Good morning. It's great to be here.
Jonathan's expertise in data security and protection has earned him a spot as a top cybersecurity voice on LinkedIn. A former board advisor, CISO, and 4-year Army veteran, Jonathan has honed his skills at Cisco, NBC, Nationwide, and Blue Cross Blue Shield. His time at Amazon Web Services helped him author Electric Eye, a multi-cloud, multi-SaaS Python CLI tool that continuously monitors AWS services for misconfiguration that may be degrading the CIA triad. When Jonathan is not garnering hundreds of comments and reshares on social media, the AWS Community Builder volunteers with AMVET, a nonprofit that supports American veterans. Jonathan, you have quite the background. What are some of the biggest challenges to understanding your security posture across platform?
I think it's more like just a difference of how it works and how some of the service level configurations are. I learned this the hard way writing Electric Eye, right? Where certain clouds expose more security bells and whistles than others. So Oracle Cloud, Google Cloud, they both have their own VM service and they allow you to do things like mess with like a virtual TPM. They allow you to set enclaves. They allow you to set secure boot modes. And there's a lot more to just standing up a VM than there is on, let's say, Amazon EC2, where it's like, hey, IMDS version 2, do you want to encrypt PBS? And then you just kind of send it. I'm not saying one's more secure than the other, but when you're actually analyzing these things, how they all come together is really the harder part because you have different tools and different clouds. Some of them are encrypted by default. Some of them didn't have the same amount of identity protection, right? Where the way that you write policies in Oracle is completely different than the way that you do like this very fine-grained conditional-based resource policies on, let's say, the Amazon Web Services cloud. So really it's taken that kind of step back and like, all right, what's our threat environment? What's our core business model? Let's start threat modeling. Let's figure out, where attackers could get in, what's important, where's our important data, important app logic, can you shut us down? Do we even care about DDoS? Is that something that we're targeted by? What are the different threat families that could attack us? And then working its way down to seeing like, okay, the CSPM tools tell me that secure boot isn't on or that it is on. Does any of that actually matter in the overall calculus? So that's really the hard part. I think we get away from that strategic view and just want to look to making sure we have green dots all over our CSPM. And I'm guilty of it, right? Of perpetuating that culture because Electric Eye has like 1,000 checks across all these different cloud platforms and SaaS tools. But really it's meant to use as a gauge only when it matters, just because a tool says it's bad. In some cases it's bad, like use MFA. Don't allow admins everywhere. Don't allow, all the ports open all the time in all your apps. That should be a given. But when it gets down to like that smaller resource level configuration, that's where you actually need to, get the old noggin jogging and start to think like, all right, maybe does this really matter in the grand scheme of things?
Let's talk about the buzzword today, AI.
Uh-oh.
How is AI impacting data security, both positively and negatively?
I think it's scaring a lot of people. So maybe that's positive if you sell data security. Maybe it's negative as well. But AI as a force multiplier, I think that the large language models, if we're looking at just from like a natural language processing perspective, are really good at taking big data analytics out of the hands of the end analyst, right? So if I'm in a SIM tool, the second I get more than like 100, maybe even 50 results back from a specific query, maybe it's a detection, a hunting query, my eyes glaze over. It's really, really hard, let alone across tens of thousands. Gen AI, LLM models, most of like the mainstream ones, GPT-4 and GPT-4o, the new Mistral ones, the new Anthropics, like the Claude 3 sonnets and haikus and whatnot. Those are really great at gaining context and digging through that stuff. And it's, good to help people write. And it's good to help people, even author threat models and papers at some perspective. But the danger is more and I don't want to say danger, but the risk is there for the businesses who may come out with these GAI, these generative AI products to let their end users use. I think we've all seen, Google's using Reddit as their training data, and Reddit is full of trash talkers online. So now if you're looking up a medical question, it might tell you to go smoke 7 cigarettes and do a backflip off a bridge instead of talk to your doctor, right? There's, car dealerships who put up Gen AI chatbot tools that are just struts on top of GPT-3.5 Turbo. And then they're convincing it to give them a discount on $140,000 GLS 580, right? So I think there's more like the implementation danger, because at the end of the day, it's just, a discriminator, really. It just takes in a bunch of data, and then it has some textual analysis that it does and spits it back out at you. And then it's like, well, where does that data go? Is it being used as training data by the people who own or host the model? What happens to the user intent? What happens to user sessions? Are users able to see across their sessions? And now you start getting into like AI threat modeling. So all that stuff, I think, is pertinent. But again, to harken back to my last answer, it's putting on the strategic cap to be like top down, like, is this AI tool even capable? Is the lang chain or whatever that middleware I'm using, does it retain sessions? Does it retain memories? Where's the data going back to? Can I gate it somehow at a firewall? Can I self-host it? These are all questions you need to ask before you panic and just make generalizations about it. But I think it's more of a boon right now than it is a curse. I think the curse part of it kind of gets overplayed. But there's a lot that we still don't know about AI, and there's a lot more that we're going to continue to learn. And I think the really refreshing thing is that as an industry, at least, just from seeing it on LinkedIn with a couple, 1,000 people that I'm connected with, a lot of people are taking it seriously, or at least trying to educate themselves about it. And that's completely different than cloud security, where it's kind of like, that'll never catch on. And now here we are. So it's good, I think, overall to see the attitude around it.
And now you mentioned LinkedIn. You have a significant online presence and audience. What newsletters, blogs, podcasts would you recommend?
Well, this podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wish there was enough hours in the day to consume a bunch of stuff. I mean, I try to listen to, I guess, the big ones. A good friend of mine, Darwin Salazar, he's at Monad right now. He writes a security newsletter. Ross Haliuk writes it kind of like from a venture product management perspective as well. You have the Cyber Ranch, which is really good. David Sparks has, like the Defense in Depth podcast. Query's been on it, not myself, but my CEO, Matt Eberhardt. Those are always good to listen to. And really, not so much the newsletters and the podcast, but just engaging with people is where I find the most value. Being able to kind of, get a good crop of like 50 to 100 people who put out stuff that's interesting. There's a lot of folks on the data side that put out a ton of great stuff. There's a lot of companies, shout out to One House and to their staff data engineer. They put out blogs, I feel like, every day, talking about Apache Hoodie, talking about lake houses, talking about data analytics and engineering. So I think it's almost better to find somebody like that who could curate it. Because at the end of the day, podcasts, you're really stuck to a schedule. You're stuck to a specific guest with a specific topic, kind of like now, right? Where somebody just sharing their opinion and, hopefully useful stuff, I think is also a lot stronger, so to lean in and use the power of the network, to use another cliche. And I think that's why I have a following, if nothing else, just to listen to the somewhat unhinged things and the memes that I share, because, I'm just me, right? I'm nothing special. I'm still learning how to do this job every day. And really, my little girls are what's more important to me than anything else. This is all a means to an end. I want to have a nice farm and maybe remarry one day and just chill out with them. And that's really it. So I just try to keep it, kind of light, PG-13 at times.
Well, who doesn't love a good meme?
A lot of people like good memes. I feel like there's more people willing to share that side of themselves. I don't want to say be more vulnerable, but, maybe not, and not even be more authentic. I think, the vibe on LinkedIn is completely different than what it was back in like 2013. It was like very, very stuffy and everybody was scared to share, but now it's a lot better. You could find anything that you want out there.
Thank you so much for your time today, Jonathan. I feel like I learned so much. That does it for this week's episode of Speed Data. Take care, Jonathan.
All right. Thank you, Megan. Bye.